Clan. Okay, Jerome. So welcome everybody to our closing session today. We're at end of day 4 of the ninth CGMD Environmental Justice Symposium, theme People, Power, and Politics. I hope you had a good day today with all the virtual sessions. Again, wasn't by choice, but I think we made it do what it do, as the great, uh, uh, not James Brown, let's say James Ray Charles would say, make it do what it do. So we made it do what it do today. So what we want to do in this session is really close out the day strong and talk about this issues around environmental justice and economic empowerment. For those of you who have your agenda, you see we have the I empowerment, not E empowerment. Been told many times you can't give folks power. Who are you to give people power? Try to give people power. The idea is help people connect to the power they already have and build, grow their power. So that's what we talk about, empowerment, not empowerment. We're talking about empowerment science and liberation science. We're talking about making sure communities are driving this work. It's other community, for the community, and by the community. So in today's closing session, we want to talk about EJ issues in economic empowerment with a focus on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And today we have several speakers with us. I'm going to introduce them. We have Watson Harris Bruce, President CEO of the Baltimore Community Lending, Inc., Catherine Magruder, Executive Director of the Maryland Clean Energy Center, Parisa Naruzzi, Executive Director of Empower DC, and Jerome Shabazz, Executive Director of Overbrook Environmental Education Center. So a little bit more about our speakers. Watson is President CEO of Baltimore Community Lending, a mission-based lender and community development financial institution, CDFI. I always end up mixing up the letters. So apologize if I do that during this roundtable. It provides loans and technical assistance to small businesses and affordable housing developers in underserved and disadvantaged low-income communities in the Baltimore region. We also had Catherine Magruder again, Executive Director of Maryland Clean Energy Center, MCEC, a corporate instrumentality of the state created to advance the adoption of clean energy products, services, and technologies. In addition to administrative and management budget for MCEC, she is engaged in government and industry stakeholder relations, event production, and innovation advancement. And we also have Parisa Naruzzi. Parisa is Executive Director again, over 20 years of experience working with nonprofit organizations and organizing communities. She co-founded Empower DC. I believe Empower DC is celebrating its 20th anniversary, either this month or next month, right, Parisa? It was founded in 2003 and has served at the helm of campaigns including the Child Care for All campaign, the People's Property Campaign, Crumble School Campaign, and the DC Grassroots Planning Coalition. Her campaign victories include winning funding for child care vouchers, which ended the city's waiting list for those services, changing DC law to provide opportunity for public input into the surplus and deposition process for public property, stopping polluting bus depot from locating in the heart of a low-income Black community, and winning funding for the long-abandoned Alexander Crummell School to become a new community center for the Ivy City community. Welcome, Parisa. And last but not least, we have Jerome Shabazz again, ED, Executive Director of the Overbrook Environmental Education Center, a community-based center dedicated to preserving the built and natural environments of Philadelphia. Mr. Shabazz founded Jazz Tech Development Service, a not-for-profit organization in 1997 to promote environmental justice, encourage sustainable community development, and to promote public health in urban communities. In 2002, Jazz Tech established the Overbrook Environmental Education Center. So let's welcome our speakers today. What I want to do is give a little bit of background on this session, focusing primarily first on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund before we go into this roundtable discussion. So for those of you who are online, you may be, across the Mid-Atlantic or other parts of the country. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund plays a crucial role in addressing environmental justice and economic empowerment issues. It has three major components. It has a National Clean Investment Fund, about $14 billion, a Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, about $6 billion, and Solar for All, about $7 billion. The National Clean Investment Fund provides grants to 2 to 3 national nonprofit institutions capable of partnering with the private sector to provide accessible, affordable financing for clean technology projects across the country. The Clean Communities Investment Accelerator will provide 2 to 7, hub nonprofits that will in turn deliver funding and technical assistance to build a clean financing capacity of local community lenders working in low income and disadvantaged communities so that underinvested communities have the capital they need to deploy clean technology projects. And finally, Solar for All will award up to 60 grants to states, territories, tribal governments, municipalities, and nonprofits to expand the number of low income and disadvantaged communities primed for residential solar investment, enabling access to affordable, resilient, and clean solar energy. So I want to get this discussion started. We were going to have a EPA official talk more about the greenhouse gas reduction fund. Unfortunately, they're not able to join us. So I'm going to move to Catherine to talk about her organization, her role in implementing the greenhouse gas reduction fund, and give the listeners your thoughts and insights about what this fund is, and what you'll be doing to make sure that these dollars get to the communities that most deserve it. The frontline communities need to be at the front of the line when it comes to these investments. Go ahead, Catherine.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sakobi, and thanks for having me this afternoon join this panel. We are a corporate instrumentality of the state. What does that mean? It means we were created by statute with a very specific mission. You mentioned the mission earlier, and our role is a facilitator here. We're an enabler. A green bank is essentially an entity that takes a little bit of public money and uses it to crowd in or attract more private capital to solve the challenge that it's trying to solve. And in our case, that is to enable disadvantaged communities to get access to clean energy solutions and technologies easier and more affordably than they have in the past. We look at that through several lenses. Project financing as a first lens, access to job opportunities and workforce opportunities, small business development and enabling success there, and then health and environmental benefits. Those are all sort of the metrics by which we measure the success of our work. So the National Climate Investment Fund dollars, which everybody is scrambling for all across the country right now, including the Solar for All application that we are leading as a coalition application for the state of Maryland, is quite a carrot for us to try to pursue, and to be able to engage communities who have not been at the table before really does require more and very specific effort. I would say that I don't have all the answers. As a matter of fact, I think the communities have more of the answers than I do. And the idea is to get to the communities and get them to help us understand how we can best help and enable them to be part of the discussion, to be part of the implementation strategies. So with that in mind, we're looking to engage navigators through organizations that are embedded in the communities, to work closely with even people that are knocking on doors and meeting people individually at the place where they live, at the place where they work, and at the place where there needs to be this type of partnership engagement. We are applying as part of a application with the National Climate Investment Fund. We've submitted letters of support and pipelines to all 4 of those that we are aware of that are submitting for those funds in an effort to be a transaction partner and channel those monies if and when they are awarded to those organizations to Maryland or to Marylanders. We will work with your organization and the TIC-TAC to develop and implement strategies in the state and in EPA Region 3 for improved outreach and education, and work with other partners like the Environmental Finance Center that are already engaged at the local municipal government level. So it's a combination of direct interface with people on the ground in the community through organizations that are already working in the community, And through those organizations that have a mission and a focus to improve outreach opportunities and riding your coattails, so to speak. So that is, I think, a good summary of where we are on that. These funds are challenging. All of them come with strings that require Build America, Buy American, livable wage, and that's not always easy to implement with industry, but it's really important that we work together to try to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think just for my colleagues on the call, particularly Parisa and Jerome, I think this is an opportunity. And going back to our multiple days of discussions about the Tic Tac, the role that the Tic Tac should be playing in this region and in our communities that are most underserved, right? But also getting back to the issues of making sure that y'all as hubs, our core partners, are well resourced to do this work as we've been constantly. That's been a major refrain and theme over. I mean, I was about to say the last couple of days. Today, oh yeah, well, yesterday and today. Yeah, so definitely yesterday and today. So I just want to highlight that. Let me shift to watching first before I come back to Parisa and Jerome to ask y'all a few questions. But Miss Bruce,
Yeah.
What do you think is your role as president and CEO of the Baltimore Community Lending? I think it's really important to have organizations like yours really as part of that technical and connective infrastructure to communities and being a part of this process. I think it gets at some inequities of the system of financing that we've seen across the years, and you cannot have that type of uh, um, good old boy, I'm gonna use that term, approach when it comes to these environmental and energy justice issues. We cannot have the same old, because same old will get us what we've been getting, right? So, what do you think about your role with your, as a CEO and with, organizations like yours that are, in this space? What do you think y'all can do to make sure this greenhouse gas reduction fund impacts the communities again who have the most need, who've been left behind, that have been dealing with disinvestment or been ignored and invisibilized by the financing system? What are you going to do to make sure those communities get the benefits that they deserve and get those Justice 40 benefits, the investments and the benefits that they deserve? Go ahead.
Great. Well, first, thank you for the invitation. And thanks for asking that question, because we've been very aggressively advocating, making sure we have collaborations, partnerships, all put together for this whole purpose. As a CDFI, or Community Development Financial Institution, we are embedded in the community. This is what we do. We provide more than capital. We provide technical assistance. We provide hand-holding, advisory services, you name it, to small businesses, community organizations, as well as affordable developers in the low to moderate income communities. These communities that we serve in the greater Baltimore area are underserved and disinvested. So what we are part of a large coalition called the Community Builders of Color Coalitions, over 20 organizations nationally, and the African American CDFI CEOs. As a CEO, I'm at the table. We have been advocating. We all responded to the RFI that came out before the RFP came out. But the goal is to collaborate and apply through a fund that was created specifically called the Justice Climate Fund. The Justice Climate Fund has all of these organizations, which includes African American organizations, Latino organizations, Indian organizations, Asian, all Black-led CEOs from all these organizations coming together to support our application, because it's important for us to educate, inform, do outreach with the people we are already working with. We already have relationships and trust. And as you all know, with everything that's new, you must have trust and relationships with the people who will be beneficiaries. So because we are in a unique position, we want to make sure we capitalize on these funds. So we are applying for the National Clean Investment Fund as well as the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. Those funds we are applying for because 40% will be set aside for communities of color. So right now we are putting together pipelines, doing letter of support, and we are working with the Trade Association for CDFIs, also who is also a member of the coalition, the OFN, which is the Trade Association for CDFIs. We are educating right now our staff, learning. We are learning ourselves because this is new business for us. We are working with our real estate developers to understand the benefits as well as to create economic opportunities for contractors that we work with now to make sure they have access to resources to do various projects within the community. So we are not taking it easy because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity because a lot of our community businesses and organizations missed the PPP, which was the Paycheck Protection Program, because they were not ready. And now we want to make sure. So my organization, specifically, we are creating a center called the Business Development and Resource Center, similar to the hub. We are going to be doing training, workshops, and partnership with organizations like yours and other renewable energy workforce development company to educate and inform and provide a comprehensive TA for those businesses that need to be informed. So that's our position, and we are not taking it lightly. I'm out there speaking to a lot of people, and my staff are undergoing training, and we will be proactive this time to make sure our communities are not left out. So thank you for asking.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that response. That was really exciting to see that y'all are, jumping in. And like you said, people mixed out on PPP. We can't miss out on this, and not just miss out on it. We have to make sure the right organizations are
Yes.
applying, right? That from an EJ perspective, we talk about representative justice, and we want to make sure the folks again who are in the community, so the part of infrastructure in the community, so for supporting the communities, that they are applying and they are enabled to apply. That these things are accessible. One thing, just one quick joke, Miss Bruce, we haven't met yet. Like we're supposed to talk about the application. So I was working on the email while you were talking, just to say we're gonna. I mean, just to be honest, like that's why I was a little bit paused because it's due. Is it due October 12th?
Yes, it's due October 12th.
So let me say this, y'all. I'm gonna say this because y'all know I'm gregarious and joking. This just adds to the point that we're saying. There's a lot of opportunities, right? And this Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund with the three components is part of a larger batch of opportunities to the Inflation Reduction Act. As you heard us say, we're at Dr. Hollis and I were at the White House at the Tic Tac meeting, and we saw all these opportunities. And I said, now I'll repeat here, I felt overwhelmed again, just a number of opportunities that they were flashing on the screen. It's hundreds of programs out there, y'all. Hundreds. How are we supposed to do this effectively? So I think part of the point is, we got these ecosystems, right, that haven't really talked to each other well.
Yeah.
How can we make sure that these ecosystems are talking to each other better? So we already know who we are. We have a plan. When these opportunities come in, we're gonna always work together, break down the boundaries and the barriers. And so we can have even like shifting. You take the lead on this one, we take the lead on them. Because this stuff, it's wearing me out. And that's been like some inside jokes with the community partners. We're being worn out. So I just want to share some of that insight, y'all, with all these opportunities. As Miss Brewster said, we have to be in, but it's so overwhelming. So I just want to share that. But I'm gonna pass the mic to Parisa. As a community activist working in DC, and doing all the work that you've been doing around environmental justice, preservation issues, air quality issues, gentrification, housing. What role do you see for your organization? You're part of the Mid-Atlantic Climate Action Hub, our match program. You are a hub in the Thriving Community Technical Assistance Center, the TICTAC. What's your role? Do you see a role for your organization to provide leadership and guidance and making sure these dollars get to the communities that you serve.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be in everybody's presence. Yeah, Empower DC, as you mentioned earlier, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. And, while that has been a good amount of time and a good journey, the reality is organizations like ours have been under-resourced from the beginning, and we're only now just starting to really build towards having a full capacity of staff and et cetera. So, we literally, started in a church basement, started with our staff not being paid, at all in the first year, very little in ensuing years, being, severely understaffed. And so we're used to doing a lot with a little, but that's exactly the condition that we're trying to change, right? In the community and for the groups like ourselves. So, I think right at this particular moment, it's I think our role is, of course, to be the entity that helps to ensure that the grassroots voices are being heard, that one, they know about what's going on, that they have opportunities to shape and guide and be the visionaries for some of these solutions that are going to be implemented. We're kind of in a little bit of a challenging place here in DC because there are not too many organizations that are, base building organizations addressing environmental justice. And, we're really one of the only ones that's working at a citywide level on that. And so it makes, it's a very huge responsibility and we take that very seriously. We're the kind of organization that gets involved in a community. We don't leave. We don't just go because the money ran out. These are commitments. These are long-term commitments. And of course, relationships and trust are at the center of everything that we do. So, if we were to be a group that came in and said, oh, we're going to start working with you and then disappeared, that would, go against everything we stand for. So, we work in communities like Ivy City. I've been there for over 20 years fighting on the same issue, the same thing. And we're finally making progress. But the point is, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of capacity. And I think I'm a little bit concerned at the moment that as we are, brought into the space, which I very much appreciate being brought into the space, being asked, it's almost as though we're, our role is to provide technical assistance to others while we still are developing our own capacity. I hope that we can, ensure that the model is very bottom up, which means, again, very labor intensive, door-to-door outreach. It means grassroots community meetings. It means not doing a lot on Zoom. And it means a lot of intentional communication to bridge the gap between, folks who know how they're experiencing quality of life issues in their neighborhood, but are not speaking the same language that the EPA may be speaking in these grants. So how are we like making sure that we're really hearing each other about what the priorities are? And I'll have to say one other thing, which is that, I love having the data on air quality. I love being able to do the testing, the monitoring, but the reality is a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now has not changed the conditions. We have studied the conditions. We have maybe acknowledged the conditions, but there's a political component, a political will component, a power component to actually repairing the harm that has been done that I have not seen shift yet, at least here in DC. So the city government is pretty much, we're saying we have these climate goals. We're saying we have, we care about heat island, we care about air, yet we're still building the same way. We're still pursuing the same development agenda. We're still building a new infrastructure for outdated, environmentally unfriendly technology, like the gas company, like the, gas fueled school buses. And we're still burdening the same overburdened communities with that, with those projects. So I'm really questioning, is this a moment, will these funds be leveraged in a way that we don't just do a better job with PR around these issues and doing, talking about, maybe even collecting data, but are we really going to change the way that we do things and repair the harm that's been done?
No, thank you for that, Parisa. Very powerful. All your points are very powerful, but just that point about collecting data, I think for me, collecting data in this situation is the impact. Did you get to the outcomes? But do we need to collect more air quality data? Do we need to collect more health data? It's part of the culture, right? In some ways, delay is a delay tactic culture. We need more data. We need more information. Oh, Parisa, we hear the community's concerns, but we just don't have enough information. We need to do more surveys. We don't have enough monitors. And some of that comes from an extractive kind of academic approach to understand these issues, which really what it is about kicking the can. It's kicking the can. But with this money, we cannot kick the can. We need to kick the gas can, right, and get to some solar can. That's kind of corny, but y'all get what I'm saying. Move the gas can to solar can. Okay, y'all got me. But no, you're exactly right. It's a kicking the can approach because then you have and then even with the political process, Parisa, it ends up being a process. More talking, more meeting,
Mhm.
more talking, more meeting, and then the good old boy system is still in place, right?
Yeah.
So how do we push that back? And that's the playbook. So how do you change the game, right? Not get played by the game and change the game. And how will this money be used to change the game that folks are experiencing right now, right? So I think this is one of the just kind of have just kind of bounce off what you just says. I think we have to uplift that in this space in this moment that we have with these dollars and other dollars to the RA. Let me shift to Jerome. So Jerome, again, really important discussions that we've been having. You've been part of multiple discussions across today and yesterday. And again, I just want to uplift what Parisa just said again, but also this and what Parisa said too. The true cost. Parisa said, I know, and I know Parisa, I'll respond to that because yes, we want to provide technical assistance and help to other folks, but like you said, but Jacoby, what about us? So that's why we got to build up our own selves first. I gonna help other people get your stuff to get our house together. So how can we make sure you have a complete house before, as for those of you with CDCs, before we start building other houses, right?
So
Right.
let me just so again thanks very much, and it's great to be a part of this panel. I go back long enough to know when we used to call all these sustainability movements the three P's: the people, profit, and planet. So now we've expanded upon that to be community, our economic structures, and our environmental and climate interests. But nevertheless, being in the room with people who have expertise in these various sectors of this work is a big step in the right direction, particularly for the cities, for the community organizations. I love coming behind people like Parissa because it's basically like whatever she said is correct. It's the issue is, and let me just put it into a framework because this is something that I'm pretty good at is organizing the thinking around the outcome that we're looking for. And I believe that we need a more robust social architecture for the resilient and sustainable communities that we're trying to develop. And we need to be able to fund that. We need to make certain that when we're doing these RFPs, that we're specifically putting resources in place to fund that social architecture. Let me tell you what I mean by that. We have, for example, the benefit of Ms. Bruce, and she's running this community lending organization, but there need to be that type of talent at the community development corporate at the organizations level as well, so that we can liaison with and speak the language that she needs to hear from us relative to financial structures that will take advantage of the resources that may be available for grant making. In other words, at our best, what we do, we're meaning makers. We are people to make sense out of interpreting what's happening on policy, what's happening in academia at a community level. So we're the best interpreters around. And I'm not just talking about foreign languages, but because these concepts are like foreign languages to the communities that we serve. So do we have that capacity? No. Do we have people who are dedicated at that level? Because we can't fund that. So we have generalists who learn how to do a variety of things if we're at our best, right? I'll speak for Paris because I know for a fact she got these talented people that are doing all kinds of things. And some of them had to learn as they were going along because they were tasked to take on responsibilities that were beyond their scope of work. Am I right or wrong? Because we can't say no to our communities. And so I think the point being is that we have to have the social architecture in place. That social architecture has to feel comfortable with providing resources and building resources in. I cannot tell you how many grant opportunities where institutions wanted to include a community organization and have already predetermined how much we were going to be worth. And I remember having conversations with a university, not this university, but with another university. And I said, how did you come up with that number? He said, well, we just made it up. Well, I said, our costs are not just made up. These are real people. We have real indirect costs. We don't get electric for free. We don't get water for free. And you have these broad scopes of engagement. So I think the first thing is understanding that there is a social architecture. And within that architecture, there are costs. And there are elements to that cost that we need to make certain that are spread across the nature of our work. And it doesn't stop at the CBO. The CBO is not a nebulous process. That was the other thing that we were dealing with as well, is that we were treated as if all CBOs are the same. We're not the same. Some of us have core competencies that others do not. And so therefore, you may need a variety of community-based organizations who have a variety of skill sets to reach the constituents that we need. But I think there is a great deal of assessment that has to be done and that we need to pay for it within our grant making to make certain that community organizations have the skill sets so that we can communicate with these governmental liaisons, with these financial agency liaisons, so that we could better explain these policies to the constituents that we represent. You know, there are some structural issues that we're going to have to look at as well. You know, I'm in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania doesn't have community solar. And so the scale of the kind of constituent who has the capacity to actually roll out some of these initiatives is going to outpace some of the community organizations who are actually on the ground. So that discongruency is a factor that we're going to have to deal with right off the bat.
Oh,
And in
thank
some
you.
cases,
Oh,
and in
good.
some cases, we're beginning to recognize those differences, and in some cases, we still need to have that conversation.
Oh, sorry for interrupting. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, go right ahead, brother.
I just want to reemphasize these points that have been made by our community hub partners on this Zoom, and it's going back to what Miss Bruce said about all the work, the less support she's getting, and then she's working on a proposal. I did send her the email, by the way,
Right.
so we can meet. And then also what Catherine talked about as well, right? Is I just want to say for both of you as you submit your applications, you got to put money in your budget for the people part. You got to put more money in your budget for the people part, for the community groups, for the people part. That's a lot of work that has to happen. As Parisa said, knocking on doors. It ain't gonna be Zoom. When I said Parisa, sometimes I go corny. You can't break emoji bread? That don't work with community folk. Breaking emoji bread, y'all. You got to meet people in person, build relationships. It's in person. You got to go to libraries, community centers. So that's also for us with our TIC-TAC as we provide support for folks as they apply for their as they submit the grant proposal to encourage and guide people to put more money into the staffing, the people part, all of that admin that Jerome said that's not covered. Again, this true cost part. So I'm gonna hold that because I'm not talking too much. I'm gonna go back to Catherine. So you heard from your fellow panelists, and I just want to ask you, what do you think, for example, as we zoom into the National Clean Investment Fund and what you're doing, how can we make sure that your proposal and whatever efforts get funded are hearing to people like we're talking about on this call, are bringing those issues in and really getting that true equity and power building for the folks who, as Parisa said, we do the work without capacity, but we need capacity. So I just wanted to stop there
Yes.
and get your response to that.
And that's true at every level and every organization. Because there is so much that needs to be done. And I think what Parisa said about this is bottom up work is really what makes sense. And, having a role as a convener, which you do, and bringing together thought leaders. But just as a result of this meeting, I have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call Watchin and say, hey, how can we work together? Because if money's going to come through my gate that is available to fund projects that are in your pipeline, we want to be able to talk to each other about that. As playing a convening role that MCEC can and does as a neutral third party. We're not in this to make money. We're in this to make things happen. But I would say that it's sort of a two-headed beast, right? That we need communities to engage with us in a way that works for them. I know that it isn't always convenient for a 9 to 5 conversation because somebody's working a job to feed their family. So I have to make my resources available at times that's convenient for the community. And that does require more bodies, more boots on the ground. But rather than funding me to do it, if I can pass funding through my gate to Parisa or an organization like hers in Maryland that already has built that community relationship, and she is able to speak back up to us to say, or back over to us to say, here's what they're telling me they want and they need. Having a vision, I think, is where you start with anything. So for us, we want to get into communities through organizations that are on the ground there to get the communities to tell us, what is your vision? What do you want? What do you want to happen? Not us tell you, oh, you should put solar on your house, or you should have a resilience hub at your community center. What do you want? And how do we help you get the resources to do it? How do we help make sure that small businesses in your community are helping build those things for you? And I know there's the data thing. My God, the grant application is so onerous. It's not even funny. Just everything that you have to put into the paperwork to submit it. So if being a central resource to help communities apply for funds is a role that we can play where our public funding provides that service, then I think that's what we need to do, right? To be able to get to the money is one step. To manage the money and report on the outcomes of the money is another step. And all along the way, there's costs there. So if we can help find skilled and experienced and successful people who have done that in other places or other communities and make those people and their expertise available to the communities who've not had the advantage of working with them, that's another service that we all can play, is finding the technical skills, the capabilities to allow for them to be, as you say, empowered.
Thank you for that. That just to reflect on what you just said. We that's been the theme of some of our conversations about the TIC-TAC over the last few days, and how those we need more of those skilled folks to be at the table and be able to access them, and knowing that we have our TIC-TAC is $12 million, but it's not enough money to really do what we want to do. So how do we leverage? So the point is, how do we work with you to leverage that to make sure we have those grant writers who can provide support to communities who are applying for all these grants across the federal family, and also a foundation funding. So I think that's something that we talked about in the context of philanthropic organizations, filling that void as it relates to some of the additional support that we need. And also organizations like yours who are these conveners, facilitators. I just want to make sure we have that in the record, everybody, so we can collaborate as we move forward. But I'm gonna come back to, thank you for that. Come back to.
Let me just add one other thing. The ability to procure and hire and pay and the infrastructure that goes along with that is not something that disadvantaged communities and community leaders are going to be able to take on easily. So if as a public entity, we can provide the service of doing the pay and the contracting and the scope of work and help build those tools so that at some point that can become something that's done in the community. But for now, we're able to bring that expertise, to bring that infrastructure to allow those people to be employed to work for those communities, writing grants, submitting applications. That is something that we can do now.
Yeah, let me add to that. So I made a comment during one of our meetings yesterday, and I said that we have these secondary partners that we should be engaging. And I believe I mentioned MCEC as a potentially secondary partner for those who are TikTok. We have four objectives. One is the outreach and engagement objective, one's the training objective, one's the grant writing objective, and the fourth objective is engaging business and industry to move to a clean energy economy transition. So I mentioned as it relates to objective 4, I think I mentioned your organization as an organization we should be partnering with to help the Environmental Finance Center and also the Energy Justice Group and our team from National Wildlife Federation implement Objective 4. And also I mentioned to the Environmental Finance Center, which is lead Objective 3, we need more support of groups who are already doing this kind of work. So the free Frontline Resources Institute, Environmental Professionals Network, the retired EPA folks who are doing some work, and also your organization would fall under 3 as well as it relates to that grant writing support. So I just want to say that for the record. So as we move forward from this conversation, we actually have some solutions that we can integrate into the work we're currently doing, and we're leveraging. We're not reinventing the wheel. Okay, so thank you for that. Watson, for you, I mean, you mentioned some of the challenges and the fact that y'all weren't engaged in PPP. For your organization and the others in your coalition, what do you think are going to be the challenges? Really, like getting the money and making sure the money, that you're able to handle those dollars and have the impact you want to have. Can you talk about challenges and barriers that you discussed with your cohort and what y'all do to address those challenges and barriers? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for asking. Well, we were involved with PPP, and there were a lot of challenges and barriers. And these barriers are still there because the constituents or the community that need the most assistance takes a lot of resources. Like you are saying, you need the internal capacity to really go out in the community and prepare people for these opportunities. A lot of the organizations, either community development organization, community, various nonprofits and for-profit small businesses did not have the expertise in-house to submit the kind of documentation that was needed for the PPP. And that's why we are being proactive now, because the challenges are still there. Because we hire 2 full-time TA providers in-house, but there's no funding for that. We have to always raise funds to cover the cost. I need like 10 because the needs are huge. A lot of the organizations who really want to help, they need us from basic things, just preparing the application, the financials, just understanding the technology, the various acronyms, and what other this need. Right now, some of those barriers are working with our real estate developers, just convincing them about the opportunity for clean energy. I went through this a couple of years ago because I managed a USAID project, a renewable energy project in Africa. And we went through similar thing of educating, convincing people of the benefit of using solar, or not just solar, but just clean energy or clean energy off-grid products. Because people look at the costs, the investments, and they will say, well, it costs too much money to include solar energy in our projects. We do not have the means. But if we have access to these funds that are coming out, we can subsidize some of those costs for the developers that are doing affordable housing, because the cost is prohibited for so many reasons. They cannot afford to add something, but we have to look at the long-term benefits, which would be the impact of the energy efficient homes, lower utility costs, and just health wise, because we are in food deserts, we are in banking deserts, we are in energy desert. Every desert you can think about in the region that we work in, we have all of those deserts. So how do we minimize those barriers? Is by early intervention, education on the costs and benefits analysis, and showing them that if they participate now, the long-term benefits will overcome whatever obstacles they're having. So these are things, but it comes with people going out to the communities and meeting them where they are. because our job is not sitting in the office 9 to 5. We work 7 days a week. We go to events, we go to churches, we go to businesses that's open on Saturdays, Sundays, or whatever. But I don't have enough staff. So I'm doing a lot of that. My whole management team is, and because the people get burned out real easily. So we need those resources to really go out. So I'm saying the barriers is critical to have us build our internal infrastructure in order to help people who really want to help. So we have to help ourselves first from not drowning to help those who are drowning. So these are some of the challenges we have. So what we are doing for solution is forming collaboration, partnership, because we cannot do everything ourselves. So our center is going to be pulling in resources from other partners that's good at what they do. We know our expertise is to be a lender, but we also do a lot of technical assistance. But we want to bring others that have more capacity, and they can also share or to solve the problem.
No, that's great. You just said we drowning. I can help somebody else who's drowning when you're drowning. I mean, that's exactly. I hate to say it. I feel the same way, and people been burned out, and then these justice issues. I tell folks, don't stop at 9 to 5. The people we're trying to serve, you got to serve them after 5.
Yeah,
You got to really have a second shift. I know we got a second and third shift, but you really got to have a second shift for staff who actually go out there after 5 o'clock and do the weekend work. And then you have to get staff who do the work from 9 to 5. I mean, if we really need 2 sets of staff to do this work well. And I think for me, just listen to your comments and also what I've heard from community partners across the symposium and previously in prior discussions, where are those? I mean, this is rhetorical. Where are those folks at who can be, I want to use the term pipelines, we'll try to get away from gas related, euphemisms, analogies, metaphors, and colloquialisms, all those quips, and all those words, whatever. The pathways. Where are those people at who want to do this work? That to me is also a challenge of changing the paradigm of justice work is the good work, right? But justice work is work you can get paid to do. And so I just want to put that out there as something that changing the mindset in the ecosystem of the folks who are in the ecosystem. Just want to say that. But going back to community partners, going back to, just a question to both of you, Jerome and Parisa. I want to key in the Solar for All program. So we have the Solar for All program. I was a little concerned. I mean, this is just one critique of it. And I said this before, I think, to Catherine about how the notice, the letter of intent you had to get in by a certain date, and it was just so quick of a turnaround. But on the positive side, what do y'all see the Solar for All program doing for communities that you serve, particularly those who are dealing with energy inequities and energy burden, right? They got to choose between paying their energy bill and the whole affordability issue, right? And paying for their medicine, paying for their food. Do y'all think this will be a powerful program to have positive impacts for communities you serve? Do you think that it will help with some of the housing kind of issues that folks that you work with are experiencing? What are the benefits, that you think may have, benefits that could come from this program for those communities that you serve? I'm not sure who wants to jump in first. You want to jump in first? Go ahead.
You want me to do it? Okay.
Or Parisa,
you can go ahead. Parisa does.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just say briefly, we do a lot of work with public housing residents, and in public housing, you don't pay the utility bill, although it still has a greater benefit, of course, to everybody to have clean air and, to address climate. But what's happening a lot with the privatization of public housing is that people are being converted to vouchers, and voucher tenants do have to pay utility costs. And often that is, a shocking expense at times, right? To then have an exorbitant, Pepco bill when you might have not been used to that before. So I think that, really prioritizing the use of solar within affordable housing projects where there is either project-based or, individual voucher holders would be a priority of ours. And I would love to look at this also at a neighborhood level. In communities like Ivy City, we can, we have a benefit of really looking at, okay, so who all is here, there's homeowners that have old homes, over like 100-year-old homes, and many people don't have the resources to maintain those homes. And so you do have to think about, okay, can you put up solar panels if you need to repair your roof? There's additional concerns, right, that might be at play for some of the homeowners to even be able to take advantage of those programs. Can we create some incentives where a landlord might gain the benefit of having the solar installation, but also there'd be some expectations of that landlord that they would maintain affordable housing and not, convert and displace people. We're facing that a lot, of course, with the older apartment buildings. The city sometimes calls them naturally occurring affordable housing. It just simply means that it's an older building that the rent is lower. And once those buildings are flipped, that affordable housing is really gone. So I would love to look at it again in that community perspective, and how do we really meet people where they are and make sure that the programs are flexible enough that we can repair the roof to install the solar, or we can do other things. I will say that I individually was able to benefit from the free solar program here in DC. And I individually was able to see my, energy costs decline by, I think I went, I think I'm paying about a third of what I was paying before. And it was, a great opportunity for me, but I fit the criteria. I had the ownership of the home. I had a roof that could take the solar. And I want to just make sure that we're not, missing the greater societal benefit, because a lot of times the programs are, not flexible enough to meet different conditions that people are living in.
Go ahead, Jerome. You can answer, and hold on before you answer, Jerome. Another part for both of y'all, maybe the second question is, if you get it, in your response, the workforce development, like that empowerment, economic empowerment side, also include, think about that workforce development piece too. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so it's going to be challenging, quite frankly, from my perspective, is that the constituents who need the services the most are not property owners. And so the relationship for the funding is going to have to be with someone who has site control. And that site control is generally an owner. And the more effective way in terms of scaling up the use within a particular region is to use a number of properties in the same area. When people are mobilizing, if they're mobilizing and doing the work in the same geographic area, it's a more efficient cost than if they were doing scattered sites. And so some of the preliminary information that I've seen on this particular grant program, the Solar for All, is absolutely discouraging and in some cases disqualifying the use of singular projects. So they have to have multiple units, multiple access to properties, multiple access to site control, and all of that represents a different kind of power shift in terms of who's actually being supported and negotiated with. And ultimately, if you're not dealing with the constituents who really need the service, you're dealing with an intermediary who you would have to try to, in turn, negotiate some kind of a benefit structure to make certain that they, in turn, do right by the constituent who needs the resources. And so there's a great deal of structuring and layering involved in all of this, and that we need to make certain, again, to follow the resource, to be able to work in such ways that if you become a fiscal agent or a fiscal pass-through, that you see to it that there's conditions in place so that there's affordable housing options, so that there are resources being made available to the constituents who need it, because the actual contracting itself is going to be with those owners, and those owners are not necessarily the people who have the greater need.
Yes, so Kobe, if I could respond a little, I mean,
go ahead.
This is so challenging because there's so many aspects to the use of these funds. There's so many expectations that the federal government has put on the use of these funds, and being able to achieve all the outcomes with what is really essentially limited resources. There will always be more need than we can address with public money. We have to be able to crowd in private capital to add to the ability to achieve the outcomes. And then, as I'm listening to Jerome, absolutely, you don't want to throw away good money. You want it to do what it was intended to do. But by the same token, the planet is on fire, right? We got to get something done, and we got to get something done quick. So we're all not going to go up in flames, right? It's a balancing act. And I find it difficult. I want to achieve all the outcomes. I sometimes have to remind myself not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because we'll get caught up in what we started this conversation with about the data and the data dragging us down. It's really a balancing act. And you brought up something in a conversation to me weeks ago that I thought made a lot of sense. There's different layers of this, as Jerome mentioned. What Watson is talking about is financial literacy. How do we help people who aren't used to, and this is in my own household, my teenagers, right? Be able to talk the language of money and be able to be fluent in the language of money so that they can make a difference in their own communities. Is that something that we need to be thinking about in order to address everything we want to achieve here? Then there's the on the ground, boots on the ground level, where you go out and we're talking about being in and among the community. How do we make this an attractive and positive job where students want to come out of school and say, this is a difference that I want to make in the world. This is what I want to do to be positive. The social architecture that Jerome talked about, shifting the mindset from we all want to be doctors and lawyers, drive expensive cars and wear, really nice designer handbags. That's not the meaning of life, right? So we have to change our mindset, maybe go back to the hippie era of, how we approach things. But I just think there's the 50,000 foot level problem that we have to solve. There's the mid-scale level of what we have to solve. And then there's the really detailed level of what we have to solve for.
I want to piggyback on something you said, Catherine, and I'll give you an example of something we're doing here. We just received some funding at our center to build some solar infrastructure. But one of the criteria for us was to make certain that it's being built in such a way we could train people on it for workforce development. So we're trying to leverage the whole idea that at the end of the day, there are multiple benefits at this stage of this integration within communities. So I always think about I always talk about the disinvestment and the displacement. Those are the two issues that keep coming up when I talk to community members. Are these things going to displace me? Or are these things going to be a sign of continuous disinvestment? And we're saying, no, this is new investment and there are new opportunities. And one of the things that we want to get out of those new investments is a workforce development to create a new normal, right? Because we got to maintain these systems. We have to take care of these systems. And we have to make certain that people feel good about this type of technology being introduced into a neighborhood, right? It's not just some static situation where it's like, okay, just take it and live with it. We have to make sure that the value proposition is as significant to the people who are beneficiaries, and they're not just beneficiaries because we say so. They're
and
beneficiaries
it's not a burden on them when they
it's not a burden, right?
It's not
because
a burden.
your kid is working on it. Somebody's getting a job from it. They're reducing their electric rates from it. We have to start, really making all of these benefits a part of the package. And if you're writing these proposals, it's probably going to enhance your proposal when you have a workforce development piece associated with it. When you have, that whole literacy, we're adding that into our training and development now. That financial literacy.
So
we're making certain that folks, before they get out of our programs, have bank accounts and have checking accounts.
We should make that part of our school systems.
So let me jump in for a second. So I want to highlight a few things that was just said. So hopefully I don't lose any of the points, because that was a really good conversation. So almost another Jerome, and community knowledge. That's another one. Add that. That's another diss. That's another diss. I think that combo that y'all talking about, and Catherine went by the conversation we had a few weeks ago, this multi-layer, right? The scale, like the at the biome level, at the forest level, at the ground level, and into the roots, right? You got to have multi-level approach to this work. I think that literacy piece is important for these applications, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the workforce development. But I think for any proposal that the TIC-TAC support, we need to make sure that we're adding that in to financial literacy, workforce development, and organizational. I'm not sure the right word is, Parisa, but like how you build your organization and maintain your organizations. And then also the example, y'all, that y'all talk about, trees are another example of you put in trees, but there's no maintenance. And you got to get buy-in, and you have a job and durability. So I think it's really important points that y'all just made. I just wanted to highlight some of those and make sure we uplift those and how we submit these proposals, whether it be for Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund or other things that we're going to do. Now we have about 11 minutes left. I want to see, do we have any questions from the audience, Shanice, yet, or comments that we should be sharing with the? Let me see. Don't see any questions yet. So, any thoughts from you watching based on
Yes,
the
yes.
discussion we just had? Go ahead.
Definitely, I want to add to the conversation, David, you're having in terms of another issue that is so important, and we are focused on that, even creating workforce development, but self-employment. That's entrepreneurship. There's a lot of people that are underpaid, underserved, but underemployed. So they are working, but they are not making livable wages. So what we are doing is focusing on entrepreneurship. So we are providing financial literacy, but business development services, wraparound services to help with marketing, business plans. We help people develop business plans. So we develop a product in my our CDFI, where we work with startups, people who just have a vision but do not have track record, do not even have a high credit score. We work with them to create a opportunity for them to do whatever their passion is, to create entrepreneurship. And so because of that, we have a lot of economic opportunity. We have so much interest, especially since COVID-19. There are a lot of women getting into construction. So we work with women in construction who are in the trades, but they don't have expertise. So we are helping them become developers. A lot of flippers are flipping homes, but they are not ready developers. They don't know what they are doing and not ready making a profit. So we are training them to become real entrepreneurs. Our business center, we just formed a partnership with a renewable energy company that would train people how to manufacture or lay solar panels. But then we are doing it not just for job, workforce development to get a job, but how they can start their own businesses to do it for others as a small business. So we are thinking out of the box to create entrepreneurship because that's a way of wealth creation, and work with homeowners also. So it's so important to work with all of these disadvantage, displacement, as well as community knowledge or this community knowledge, because a lot of times people don't know what they don't know. So it take that's a lot of information we have to share, and showing them the benefits of doing that to have generational wealth.
No, thank you. Very powerful comments there. No, again, so as we build these proposals out, right? So you're talking about, financial literacy. We're talking about, organizational development and management, right? Setting the organization up, being able to get the funding, manage the funding, right? You talked about education, workforce development. One of the points I was going to say earlier in response to what you were saying is, how we make sure we inspire folks so they can get training, then go back into the community, be part of the fabric of change. So they don't leave, but become part of the infrastructure. And then your last point, which speaks back to, thank you, watching this, our whole theme with this session, environmental justice and financial empowerment, entrepreneurship. How do you build wealth? Small businesses, that investment. I think these should be key components to many of the proposals that we, as with the TIC-TAC and through our partnerships, we encourage those different components to be in these proposals, right? I think that's powerful. And again, getting back to these issues of the greenhouse gas reduction fund, or ABIL in general. How do we build wealth, right? How do we get to that restorative justice and distributional justice? And then part of the EJ movement is about economic empowerment and
Yeah.
economic justice. And I think you're talking about owning your own business. So ownership and opportunity. How we
Mhm.
create opportunity structures and moving beyond just the workforce development that's giving people a job paradigm, having them build their own business and help, and that helps to build and grow their own communities. So I just wanted
Exactly.
to add to that as part of the ethos and the visioning that we have with this opportunities for this fund and through our partnerships that we lead with as part of the vision and mission, but also strategically what are the elements that should be included, right? Again, that literacy piece, the education piece, this piece around workforce development, and also business development, entrepreneurship. We had a session at the symposium. I'm not talking too much, but we had Founders Forward is a group that actually is providing seed funding to BIPOC businesses to provide climate solutions. And so we
Mhm.
should be replicating and bringing some of those pieces into what we're doing. So we do have a comment from the audience. They're saying there has to be more subcontracting opportunities in TA to track financial management. The worst feeling is having the skill and capacity, but not being able to prove it upstream. So, what can we do, y'all, to make sure that folks who have these skills and have the capacity that we're building in? I think y'all talked about this earlier, but you're building it into the work that we're doing. Anyone wants to chime in on that? As a best
Yeah,
practice. Go ahead, Jerome.
yeah. I'll just say quickly. We do a great deal of training and development, and we have a whole component that we call essential skills. And in some cases, because we have folks who are reentry population folks who who may need to work with team building and who may need to deal with communication skills and conflict resolution. But in those essential skills, there's also these financial components, there's these management components, and there's these quality of life components. And I think that has been very successful for us because those people get out of this thinking around having external folks managing affairs that they have the capacity to manage themselves if they only have the right resources to learn how to do so. And so I think that whole nature of that has to be built into the training. It has to be built into training and development, and it'll allow people to either be a good employee for someone else or a good employee for themselves. And
Mhm.
we found both because there's some foundational skills that you need, foundational abilities that you need if you're going to work externally or if you're going to work in your own enterprise.
Right. I can add to that because we
Go
have
ahead.
we have a couple of examples of returning citizens that had subcontracts with various developers, construction companies, even the state. But because of the past record, they couldn't get a SBA loan. We are SBA lender, but we were able to work with them because we have our own loan portfolio. And
Mhm.
but in order to help them, we had to work with them from the beginning. But to scale them up, we give wraparound services in
Mhm.
terms of to scale the operation. It was not just giving them the capital, but
Mhm.
we were able to give them hand holding, marketing, help to open bank accounts for them. We
Sure.
introduced them with the banks to make sure they had a holistic approach, the whole ecosystem. We worked with them, but we had our loan officers take them through the whole system in order to
Mhm.
scale them where they can become sustainable. We had 3 or 4 examples of that,
Sure.
but the whole
Mhm.
system was we had to work with them through not just capital, but it was a lot of getting them attorneys, getting their
Yeah.
accountants,
Mhm.
educating them to understand the financials. Don't have someone else do it for them. Even though
Mhm.
you have someone doing it, but you must be able to interpret to a bank. So it was a new thing. So we have a lot of clients like that who need that upstream. But in order to do that, going back to you need the technical expertise in
Mhm.
house to be able to offer those kind of services. Because it takes time. Because one-on-one coaching and mentoring. And so those are the kind of resources we are offering people, especially those who have contracts. We work with a lot of subcontractors who need more than just capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we have 2 minutes left. These last 2 minutes close us out. Well, close out the session. I'll close us out after the session's over to get us ready for tomorrow, our last day of the symposium. Just want to get your quick thoughts. 30 seconds. What are things that you think we should all be thinking about as we move forward with implementation of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and how can we, maybe a different part of that, how can we ensure we work together well to make sure the communities who are at the front line are at the front of the line when it comes to these dollars. So just your last parting thoughts. I'll go to Parisa first.
Yeah, I would just say be aware of the true cost of that really intensive labor that is at the grassroots, and the relationship building, which is critical to all of it. And we have to honor those relationships. We can't don't expect grassroots organizations to just be to use the relationships that they've built over years, decades, sometimes, for a project that may or may not be truly responsive to the community. That's like our greatest asset is this reputation and these relationships we've built over time. So we want to be part of these initiatives and these partnerships, but we want also to have some decision-making power, to be able to say, wait a minute, slow down, this is the conversation we need to have with the community first, or hey, we're hearing something completely different from the community. Are we going to be able to address that? Because if we can't do that, then we're really being used in a way to be on the front line, but not to actually, and it really comes down to power. Is there going to be true power sharing among all the partners and with the community? So thank you so much again for including me.
And make sure you keep us on check when it comes to the tic-tac-toe, Parisa, when it comes to those issues. But do our best, but definitely want to make sure that process community driven. So thanks for that. Let's go to Catherine. Pardon thoughts, words.
Yeah, the phrase expectations and realities. There's so much that needs to be done to tip the scale, right? To change the paradigm. And everything even that we just talked about in this past hour and a half, it really is important that we not do everything badly, but that we do some things really well and set some targeted priorities to make a difference. And then we can pick up other things, but I do think that it's important to set realistic expectations and not try to overpromise and underdeliver when it comes to making this stick and sustainable, and a paradigm shift that we're looking for in providing justice and fairness in how we deploy clean energy in our state and in our region and in our country.
Cool. Thank you for that, Jerome.
Yeah, this is psycho-emotional work, and I always say that our greatest burden is not being able to mitigate the difference between our aspirational selves and our performative selves. What we imagine and want to do, and oftentimes is way beyond our capacity to do it. So I think our systems approach, our collaborative approach, our ability to leverage each other's relationships is going to be essential in getting the kind of outcomes that will model our success. And I think at our best, we should be modeling what success looks like. And we're not going to be, in my mind, able to do all of the great work that's necessary, because the disinvestment that's been plaguing our communities has been happening for generations. And so we're not going to be able to fix all of that at one time. Yeah. And so mitigating that expectation is important, not only in the structural way that we approach this work, but how we communicate this to our communities. We do not need folks being disappointed again because we overpromise and underdeliver.
Thank you for those powerful words. Let's go to Washington to close this out.
Yes, great. Well, my important words would be join collaborations. There's a lot of coalitions out there. We all need to be part of many coalitions to make sure we are not limited. So join other coalitions to make sure we submit letter of supports. We all cannot be applicants, but we can support other organizations or other coalitions. Also share our projected pipelines, what we hope to accomplish, what we hope to do in our communities. So we want to do that, and we want to be engaged. We want us to be intentional, and we have to learn. That's a lot of moving parts. So to keep up, we have to have the energy to do it ourselves, but we have to be committed, because this is important work, and we don't want to be left behind. So we want to be inclusive, form partnerships, collaborations, as well as coalitions, multiple coalitions, because together we all will win, and we all can achieve it as a team than individually. That's a lot of work for everyone to participate. So thank you for including me, and I'd love to be at the table. Thanks.
No, thank you. So thank our panelists. Really appreciate everybody and being on this panel today to close out day 4 of the symposium. I want to thank everybody who made day 4 a success. Thank the team. Thank all the sponsors out there. Tomorrow, where's the last day, we're going to start. We have a keynote from Reverend Yearwood. Again, the theme is people, power, and policy. Those of you who were at the symposium last year, we had some issues where he was supposed to be on Friday, and I wanted to move him Saturday because he's a very impactful speaker, but you got to hear him in person. He had a major impact on us last year, brought him back for this year to make sure that psycho-emotional, that Jerome, you got to feel this, y'all. This is a mission that what we're doing. We're not playing around when it comes to these issues. And we have to have everybody at the table is watching, just said, collaborating. As Justin Pearson said earlier, you got to be all in. You got to rest. But this work doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. You heard folks say you do engagement and you really serious about this work. You got to be available for the people and provide that service, that technical assistance, and that right on information, as the great philosopher James Brown would say. So tomorrow, we're going to continue sharing that right on information with a lot of workshops tomorrow, a lot of technical assistance sessions tomorrow. We're going to have a youth panel, the young people, lunchtime. I'm talking about that work they're going to do. They're not the leaders of tomorrow. They're the leaders of today. And then we're going to close out the symposium with a session about how we can build a stronger climate movement. We have this global, coalition conference of the peoples, of the parties, right? Climate change treaty. But we be building our own stuff here. Like we said today, how you going to help other people? How you drowning? You gonna help other people drowning? How you gonna help people build a house? You ain't built your house, right? Mm-hmm. So tomorrow's closing session, we're gonna talk about how we have a POC, a people of color COP, right? A COP that's really focused on the local communities in the U.S. How do we build a strong movement, as Watson just said? Is everybody on this panel saying how we can work better together to address these issues more effectively when it comes to climate change? You may not, you heard me say this before, you may not believe in climate change, but at least you're Black, you're poor, you're Latino, you're Hispanic, right? You're someone who doesn't have health insurance, you're underemployed, as Watson just said. If you're dealing with these differential climate impacts, so we want to make sure that it's closing tomorrow, we wrap this up talking about climate change, but talking about people, power in politics, democracy, working together. How you make democracy work? It takes work. How you address environmental justice issues? It takes work. How you address energy justice issues? It takes work. How you address climate injustices? It takes work. Let's get to work, y'all. Have a good day. We're going to get back to work tomorrow.
Hallelujah. Thank you. We have learned today.
Thank you, Jacoby. Appreciate you all. Take care.
Take care. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.